Right now, we are honored to welcome to our stage a remarkable woman who is going to present the Richard C. Holbrooke Award for Distinguished Achievement in honor of her late husband. Born in Hungary, she has combined a career as a reporter and writer with human rights advocacy. From 2003 to 2008, she chaired the International Women's Health Coalition, a global leader in promoting and protecting the health and human rights of women and girls. From 2001 to July 2002, she was chief advocate for the Office of the Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict at the United Nations. From 2000 to 2011, she was a member of the Board of Human Rights Watch. She is currently a director and formerly chair of the Committee to Protect Journalists. She also serves on the board of directors of the International Rescue Committee and the New America Foundation, a public policy think tank. She is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, PEN International, and the Authors Guild. Since 1980, she has published 7 books, contributed as a reporter to ABC News, Public Broadcasting Services, National Public Radio, The New Yorker, Atlantic Monthly, The Times of London, The Washington Post, The Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, Vanity Fair, and The New Republic, and this introduction, believe it or not, was heavily edited. Remarkable. Connie Martin, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a rich, proud, and emotional day I have had with you here in Dayton. To be back here and to share with you in my husband's proudest achievement is beyond anything that I could have imagined in its power, and I cannot thank you, each and every one of you, enough for honoring Richard this way and for remembering him this way. It's been an incredible day for me, and to share in your twin passions, your passion for peace and your passion for good writing, is a great gift for which I thank you. I cannot think of a more fitting recipient for the Richard Holbrooke Literary Prize than Barbara Kingsolver, especially now that I've had a chance to spend a little time with her. Though she and my husband were practitioners in different fields, they are both change agents, both are humanists. There is nothing about the human experience that did not interest Richard and does not interest Barbara. Barbara has crafted some of the most compelling and ambitious and morally engaged works of fiction in our time. Her masterpiece, in my opinion, The Poisonwood Bible, succeeds utterly in bringing the horrors and the humanity of life in the Congo and the wages of imperialist arrogance for which we are all in some way responsible. It is the best single work of fiction that I've ever read on Africa. And with La Cuna, she performs the same magic in Mexico. Barbara, like Richard, builds bridges between people, cultures, and civilization. Right here in your city of Dayton, I observed Richard do the same. Peace, Richard felt, was not merely a matter of treaties signed in remote palaces. Peace had to be forged one human at a time. Peace, we learned this in the Balkans, can be shattered so easily by one determined, charismatic, and evil man bent on destruction. Slobodan Milosevic counted on the world not caring very much what happened in his corner of Europe, and for a long time, he was right. A former American Secretary of State reassured him by saying, "We don't have a dog in that fight." Richard had a dog in that fight, as he did in so many other fights. Thank you. He had a dog in the fight against AIDS in Africa, an issue that he brought straight to the United Nations Security Council. He had a dog in the fight for refugees' right to return to their homelands. Above all, he had a dog in the fight for every culture, every people's right to be treated with dignity. Nowhere on earth was Richard merely a tourist. He would approve of Barbara Kingsolver as the first recipient of this wonderful award named in his honor. I cannot think of a more kindred spirit than Barbara's. She shares Richard's big ambitions and shares Richard's sense that America has a big role to play in the world, but not by the strength of her arms. America, Richard felt, was about moral engagement, a set of values, a humanism, all of which leap off the pages of Ms. Kingsolver's remarkable work. Barbara, can you step up here? Where is Barbara?
Thank you for the stunning, uncynical joy of this occasion in which we're allowed to be hopeful and believe our words matter. Thank you for inviting me to stand here in the immense remembered presence of Richard Holbrooke and also of the previous very great writers who have been honored by this award in its earlier form, the likes of Studs Terkel and Elie Wiesel and Geraldine Brooks, who literally inhabit the shelf directly behind my writing desk. Those are the people from whom I draw my own measure of courage every day. Thank you for bringing me to the city of Dayton, which I'm really proud to remind you, if you had forgotten, passed a city resolution a month ago to become an officially welcoming city to immigrants. At a time when that's an act of courage. I'm also proud to be here in the presence of my parents, Wendell and Jenny Kingsolver, who met some considerable challenges to be here and without whom I would not be here. So any question of lifetime accomplishment would be pretty much beside the point without a lifetime. So thank you for that. And thanks also to my beautiful family, Stephen and Lily, who are here. I don't usually speak from notes, but when I saw the program tonight and I saw I was going to be the last speaker of a very beautiful evening during which I would undoubtedly have a glass of truth serum, I thought we'd be all happier if I had some notes. And you know, if Rick Perry had had crib notes, everything would be so different. I'm not saying I, have any opinions about that, but I'm just saying. What were the three things? Okay. I'm going to tell you an odd little story. It begins this way. Sally had a basket, Anne had a box. Does anybody know this story? Okay, no psychologists in this audience. Okay, come on, raise your hand if you've ever heard the Sally Ann test. None? Okay, good. Okay, good. One. The proof I didn't make it up. This is not my story. It's a classic from the annals of psychology. It's a test given to children to assess their cognitive abilities, and I'm now going to give it to you. So, see, you thought you were off the hook. You had a glass of wine too. You're going to pass, I promise. Sally had a basket, Anne had a box. They each had a marble. Now see, already if it were my story, I'd give them something more interesting. I would give them a pomegranate or a green mamba, but it's not my story, it's marble. So Sally puts her marble in her basket. Anne puts her marble in her box. Sally leaves the room. I don't even know why. Anne is an immoral person and a rascal, so she steals Sally's marble from the box. Basket, thank you. See, you're on it. She hides it in her box. Then she exits the scene of the crime. With me so far. Okay, Sally comes back and she wants her marble. Where's she going to look for it? Of course, she's going to look in her basket. That's where she thinks it is, right? Okay, if you give this test to children below 3 years old, like 2.5-year-olds, they can recognize the elements of the story. Okay, they get Sally's basket, Anne's box. They get that Anne is wicked and that she steals the marble and that everyone leaves. But you say, okay, when Sally comes back, where will she look? Do you know what they say? In the box. They really do. It seems astounding. It's like magical thinking. Why would she look in the box? Because that's where it is, okay? I know it's there, so that's where Sally thinks it is. A child begins life believing we all have the same mind. This is theory of mind. This is what psychologists mean when they speak of theory of mind. We start from this place in which we think, I'm everything, I'm it. What I think is what you think. The reason I bring it up here is it tells me something crucial about being a writer. We are not born with empathy. It develops like a muscle. Undoubtedly, it strengthens with use. And that's the basis of my belief that literature is a tool for creating that thing we all want, peace. Because we all do want that, not just Miss America. Not just heads of state, not just pacifists. Warriors of every kind ostensibly want peace, predicated on some notion of universal agreement, right? You can get to that through persuasion, or more efficiently by overpowering or eliminating those who disagree with you. And unfortunately, this has been the human solution for all ages because it's simple. And because it goes back to what is apparently our native state, that place from which we all began as toddlers, believing with the full force of our will that what I have in mind, you have in mind. Peace is fragile, as we know. It's not robust. We work to build accords, and then they crumble again and again. We move forward in civility, and then fall back on genocide. We relax into ruthless indifference. We succumb to the lure of affluence, in which we ignore the natural laws of an exquisitely interconnected world, where taking more than we need always creates hungers elsewhere and vast and aching emptinesses on the land. We ignore the rising tide. We do this, some people say, because we're intrinsically aggressive. I don't buy it. I know that many humans live lives fully and entirely without belligerence. I've seen it. I've read it. We all know the stories of such people who, however fiercely they may attach themselves to an outcome, they will not construct a bridge of violence to get there. Gandhi was such a person. My mother is such a person. She was always the Gandhi in our lives. You don't fight. You just sit down and make it happen. And thus, I'm such a person. Some people say that peace is fragile because we are doomed to mistrust otherness. And I don't buy that either. We seek the other. We marry the other. Our history is framed by adventurers who risked comfort and safety to find and embrace new people, new lands, the Lewises and the Clarks. My father is such a person, walking wide-eyed through the world, reveling in its complexity, and thus I am such a person. Refusal to visit the other is not the problem. The problematic part of the equation, I think, is a persistent presumption that peace is the same as universal agreement, that the lion will lie down with the lamb and they will both eat grass. It's never going to work. It's not even biologically realistic. You know, the lion will bloat up like a blimp and then he'll die because he can't digest cellulose. The notion that we can only be happy when everyone in the world has exactly the same political and spiritual agenda is naive. Believing that peace is only possible when we all have the same thing in mind is to say that we are all 3 years old or less. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and declare that an immature concept of peace. We can't all be the same person. To coexist, we have to grow up. We have to find and exercise our muscles of empathy. And we do this, most of us, from our earliest days, if you think of it, through story. Story is where it begins. The very hungry caterpillar chews his way through a dozen different vegetables in a single day, and believe me, for most toddlers, that is an alien agenda. The runaway bunny thinks that he can go and hide somewhere where his mother will never find him, and his mother psychs him out. She has theory of mind. She figures out where he's going to go, and she is there too. Every time, she anticipates his thoughts by knowing him. Through story, Anne can learn what Sally is thinking. Sally can learn about Anna Karenina and Oliver Twist and Don Quixote. When I was a child growing up in a very small town in Kentucky, I learned what it felt like to stand on the moors or in the mealy fields of Rhodesia through story. And I knew what it smelled like on the moors because Charlotte Bronte told me. I felt the anguish of being the reviled person, of belonging to the conquered nation, because Doris Lessing told me. I understood the merits of striking out on a dilapidated horse and fighting windmills to make the world safe, because Cervantes told me. Our little library in Carlisle, Kentucky was so small that it was in an upstairs room above the electric utility office, Kentucky Utilities, where you went to pay your electric bill. So you went upstairs and there was the library, and they had Reddy Kilowatt in the window. Do you remember, who remembers Reddy Kilowatt? He has a light bulb head and lightning bolt arms and legs. Well, you know what? For the longest time, I thought Reddy Kilowatt was the international symbol for libraries. So cool, you know? Bing! It makes sense. It was a little town, but I did not have a little life. I have books. Story is as old as we are. It's indispensable to humans. It's a kind of nutrient. It's not the same thing as information. Journalists are crucial to our survival, and I implore you to honor their profession by paying up your newspaper subscriptions. We need to know what everybody in the world is doing. That's observation, but story is different. Through fiction, we don't just observe others, we inhabit them. We gain their minds. We acquire mental maturity, working through a prescribed order from tolerance to compassion to genuine empathy. You are a different person. I get that. I am you, even though we're different. We have to be convinced over and over that the world is made of infinitely varied agendas, and we can deal with that without losing our marbles, because through stories we practice otherness and we grow up. I find it so strange that the world of letters is really nervous about this, about the power of literature to change hearts and minds. There is a widespread agreement, especially in this country, that art is allowed to be moving and entertaining and possibly enlightening, but not, heaven help us, political. The minute you suggest such a thing, people will duck and cover. Let me tell you, they scatter like pigeons. What's the deal with that? It's like the emperor's new clothes, you know, everybody's pretending we're so smart. They're not. It's ridiculous. Art is intrinsically political. You might as well say that guns are not influential. If you're carrying a gun, you're packing heat. Stories pack heat. They have influence. They make people believe. So, what I appreciate most about you here, about this award, and about all of the books and all of the people honored tonight, is that you're willing to be straight about this, to say directly and without irony, I want a better world than this one. That I believe with the strength of all those who have come before and all those coming next, that better is possible. I thank you for allowing me to tell you openly that I want to be a writer and a person who puts my shoulder to that enormous stone every morning, even when it feels as if we are sliding downhill forever. I'm proud of the people, living and deceased, who have brought us all here together tonight to say out loud that literature could build peace, and that it does. Without apology or doubt, we're here to acknowledge and celebrate that truth. We are here to applaud it. Thank you.
All right, I don't believe it. I don't believe it.